It's the KOHO Morning Show. Great to have you with us on this edition of the program, and great to see the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce in studio once again for another installment of our Community Connections podcast with the Chamber. Their Executive Director, Shiloh Burgess, in the house today, starting the series on community development with us, along with Rory Turner. Rory is an expert on business development and also part of the Chelan Douglas Regional Port Authority, a commissioner with them, and going to talk to both Shiloh and Rory this morning about the subject of community development as we kick off this wing of our Community Connection series. And Shiloh, Rory, I appreciate the time very much. Thanks.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, Rory, why don't we start with your personal background in development of this nature, in community development, business development. How far back does that go?
Oh, gosh. I got a degree from Central many decades ago in marketing and business administration and went directly into commercial real estate over on the coast. And I moved here in 95, and we bought a shopping center in East Wenatchee and started doing the work to that. And it's just been a passion of mine forever. The last 15 years or so, I've really focused on historic properties. There's some tax benefits to that, national historic tax benefits. There's some local tax benefits. But you know, if you're a history buff and you see these cool old buildings and then you see one torn down, it hits you hard. And so you start thinking, well, how can I make that better? So I worked at it. I made a lot of mistakes, and then began to learn what people were looking for and how to create a tenant mix and how to help businesses start and how to encourage them and how to take away those barriers and those tripwires out there and, encourage them to be successful and help them get there. So it's kind of fun.
And the Wenatchee Valley has innumerable stories related to just that. It seems like at every turn there's a success story as far as businesses are concerned here in the Wenatchee Valley, both past and present. So what about the current state of Wenatchee? I keep hearing I was just mentioning this, I was at an event here just a couple of weeks ago with Shiloh, as a matter of fact, and I was hearing people talk, the valley's just getting ready to really take off, getting ready to explode. I kind of feel like it already has in some ways, but I'm sure there's a lot more to come.
Well, actually, both of those are correct. I think we're all wanting it to happen, but it's very interesting because this past week I've received a ton of calls. I have a lot of signs out in the community. I've got a lot of buildings. So when the phone starts ringing, I know people are looking. And these are quality people looking for quality spaces and doing really cool things, innovative, new things. And I'm really excited. We have the old bank building at the corner of Orondo and Wenatchee. And, we didn't have a lot going on even 2 to 3 weeks ago. And I'm actually literally working with 4 different tenants right now to put leases together in that space. And that is close to 9,000 square feet. So it's just starting to happen now, I think.
It's exciting. I love what you said about tenant mixes. One of the connections that Rory has with the Chamber is he is a past president, but he might have one of the shortest but most honorable presidencies and then discharges, I guess, if we're sticking with that. Not too long ago, the Chamber once again was looking at maybe being homeless, if you will. I think the first 5 years I was with the Chamber, I moved the Chamber 5 times. And so one of the goals of the board when they hired me is we want a permanent location. We want to be somewhere. We want to put down roots. And what should that look like? And as the organization has grown and changed, that space is needed to grow and change. And while Rory was president, they purchased a building with a group of investors on the corner of 2nd and Wenatchee Avenue, where we are today. And, we were going through this challenge, and Rory said, well, I've got an idea for you. What if the Chamber and the Visitor Center was located here? And we went, well, I don't know. I mean, that's prime real estate. And wouldn't we want a restaurant there, or wouldn't we want some retail there? And the community said, no, we want you there. Well, that's great in theory, but how do you put that together, right? And so I'd love for you, Rory, not necessarily talk about our deal, but there's a lot that goes into putting a project like that together. And we said earlier, the health of a downtown really reflects the prosperity of a region, and you've really invested. And so what do you look for in that tenant mix? You can use us as an example, but what makes successful deals come together in that respect around business? Because we've got wineries, we've got a visitor center, we've got a restaurant, we've got retail. I mean, we've got Goodfellow Brothers. I mean, this is a really fun, vibrant space. And I don't know how that happens. So how does that happen?
Well, there's a lot of things that enter into that, but it's intentional. First of all, it's we're not looking for a checkbook and a heartbeat. We are looking for people that work together, that can help each other, that feed off of each other, that make it a better building. It starts with a bunch of great partners. You got to have a good ownership group. And then, they see the vision, and then you work with it. In the case of the chamber, I thought it was a no-brainer. At that time, we needed to be in a more prominent location. We got parking. You're next to the convention center. You're next to the Coast Hotel. We sell wine, and that's great because it's a profit, center for us. But it's also an exposure of all these wineries to the people that are visiting and coming through. So to me, it was a no-brainer. When you talk about the economics of it, you have to mention the creativity of your staff, and then the wonderfulness of all those guys that contributed to that. That was just amazing. If you haven't been in to see the chamber, you got to. I'm proud of it. I'm just really, really proud of it. But so I think it's intentional. We were looking for a really cool restaurant. We ended up with Jenny and Top at Atlas Fair. I mean, you can't. We had dinner there last night. I look around and go, my God, it's beautiful, And so Goodfellow Brothers, that just turned another leaf. And then we really focused, and I got to credit Roger Purdom for this, was, why don't we put some wineries down on the alleyway? We wanted to create a little village down there, but that was just perfect. And so Haran, Estates and Crayel, and boom. That's what you do. You create a vision, and then you work towards it, and you just, you go after it. We don't have time to talk about the economics of stuff like that, but you just figure out a way to make it work, and it's a matter of equity and debt, and a great relationship with a bank, and then create great relationships with your tenants, and they become long term, and everybody's happy. So,
Rory, does that success story with the chamber and its current location, which is a great pairing, I might add, by the way, too, kind of speak to something that's been lost in a lot of people's mind with e-commerce having come along? And we had Josh Tarr in here from American Shoe Shop some weeks back, and he actually told us one of the secrets to his business currently is staying offline as far as commerce is concerned. That's not going to work for every business, obviously, but he said that hometown feel, that vitality of getting people in the door to his shop was really one of the things they realized was the most vital to their business. So are other places missing that window, kind of missing out on the tried and true people visiting and wanting to go into the brick and mortar locations?
We're social creatures. You can only do so much from your office chair on a keyboard. There's part of it that's interaction that you're just not going to give up. I think there's a trend right now in office space, just to change to that subject for a second, that, there was this belief that, offices were never going to open again. I don't believe at all in that. I think people want to get out there. They want to have an opportunity to socialize, to interact with other people. It's just important to us, to most of us anyway. In terms of e-commerce, I think it's a combination of both. I think if you talk to some of the downtown businesses, Tumbleweed, for example, had one of, if not the best year they've ever had last year. Now, you answer that. To me, how do you do that? How do you achieve that? Well, you're a good business person. You reach out. You have what people are looking for, and you create an experience. You go there to create that experience. That's a big part of success right there, I think.
I think it's so true. And one of the things, thinking of Tumbleweed is having a vision and seeing what is possible. And I think one of the things that Rory has done in this community and with his great partners is looking at these older historic spaces and even other spaces, the shopping malls and areas that you've been in, and seeing what is possible in that space and how to make it work. Restoring historic buildings don't come without challenges. I'm thinking of a large boulder, maybe the size of a Volkswagen Bug, that was discovered in our building, if you will. But, you have to be able to look at this space and see what it could be. And we're fortunate. We have someone like Rory in our community that does that, and partners that are willing to share in that enthusiasm. And I don't know if you want to speak to that, Rory, but I don't know what that's like. I think you're not just doing it here. You've done it in Ellensburg with a historic hotel property. You'd never done a hotel before, but what is that process like? Because that is community development, seeing what can be.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's really not, I'd love to take credit for all that, but what you do is you listen to the community. You listen and see, what do we need? What are we missing? What we don't want to do is add 6 more of these and 4 more of these, because we already have really good ones, but why not add some more? Why don't we find something that doesn't exist? I had an opportunity 8 years ago now. I got a lead on an Indian restaurant, and I literally drove to Port Townsend to meet these people, have lunch there. And I said, look, we don't have Indian food in this town. And I had a great lunch. And I said, if you can do that, you're going to be successful. Well, they have 2 other restaurants now that they're in their second 5-year, lease, and they're doing very, very well. So I think it's one thing to look at the building and say, and I have those ideas. I can see this here and this here. From a format standpoint, we try to break it down, and instead of having 12,000 square feet, we try to have 12 1,000 square foot spaces. So that creates a little more demand for smaller spaces. But you really have to listen. You have to listen to the community, what they're looking for, what they need. When you do that, that's a great step in success.
Rory, you've been doing this for several decades now, obviously.
Yeah, we won't talk about how long.
Well, you've grown the expertise, the wisdom of someone that's been doing this for a while, and it shows obviously in some of the results that you've been able to garner here within the community, ours in particular. You've now been through a pandemic, you've gone through a recession, a great recession actually. You've been through a couple of other wiggles in the marketplace, major world events, things of that nature. There's a lot of things that you've seen come and go. I wonder about, though, success just in general terms as far as development of business is concerned, revitalization of business is concerned. Is it the same thing that you've noticed that works continually over and over again, regardless of the conditions, or does it change constantly? Is it as temperamental as people tend to be or seem to be as far as their tastes are concerned and trends are concerned, or is it really something tried and true that's underneath that just always works?
God, what a great question. Yeah, I didn't see the pandemic coming. I didn't see the Great Recession coming. And I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and I said, in the early 2000s, I made a decision to move to a smaller Eastern Washington community, North Central Washington, agricultural-based community, small center of commerce, medicine, governance. Wenatchee, Ellensburg's like that. Walla Walla is one that I haven't done any work with, but that would be another example of that. So you have these sort of somewhat isolated communities, but they're just strong. And if you can get involved, get in the downtown and get good locations, and your business model is treat people fairly and do all those other things. To me, that's what kept me solvent. During these last 2 major issues, you just can't prepare for how do you prepare for a pandemic? It's shut down in 2 weeks. And so we reached out to our tenants and we said, look, we're in this together. If you're having problems, let us know. We'll work it out. If you can't pay, let us know. We'll work it out. The chamber got that letter. And ultimately, we'd like to get that money back. But the last sentence was, we want you as a tenant when we get out of this mess. And so that message, I think, did more for our relationship with the tenants than anything else. It showed them, A, we cared, and B, that we'd work with them. And just about 100% stayed with it. I'm proud of that. That's really important.
Yeah, there's not many communities that can say that, sadly, coming out of the pandemic. So.
I think it's also a key point that we're fortunate that we have business owners, building owners, landlords, if you want to use that term, that are local. It makes those seasons of difficulty so much easier to navigate when you can actually have a conversation with a Rory or with that owner, because you have a relationship and you have a vested interest in them. And we have some outside the area ownership groups too that are wonderful, but just like having that local shoe shop, like you're talking about, Josh, to be able to go to and ask that question about that shoe or take care of it, they always have us in mind. And that is something I hope the KOHO listeners, continue to remember and think about when they are investing in their products and their place, if you will. Is because we have these local community leaders and business owners that are there for us, and that we have the opportunity to be there for them. And that does make a world of difference in the strength of our community, like Rory has shared.
Yeah, absolutely. We have some incredible businesses and some great restaurants, and we got to pay attention to them. We got to show them some love now, I think.
And there are still things in the community that Jeff Bezos can't provide. He can't cook a great meal. He can't, have a waterfront or develop. And not to picking on him specifically, but obviously one of the icons in e-commerce right now, and poising to be the world's first trillionaire potentially if the numbers continue to go where they're going right now. Yes, a lot of people did shop online during the pandemic. It was necessary, but I think this community was highly cognizant of making sure that as many dollars as possible stayed local. People ate out more. I think during the pandemic, we're seeing those numbers actually start to get returned
on
now.
our scale, as well as in maybe bank accounts. Yes. And that's so important when we're talking community development. There's a lot of things under development in this community right now. And if you put your other hat on for 2 seconds, your, as you called it, macro economics hat on. You've gone from a local businessman to now a local public official, if you will, at the Port District. Not an easy shift, I'm sure. Governance and private development is a little different.
They're just the same.
Harnessing your skill set there and just the development that's happening in that experience and being able to ask those tough questions from that economic development driver in our region has been very beneficial to us. And we have a lot of areas under development. I don't know if you want to take just a couple minutes to talk about that, but there's a lot of spaces that are changing.
Well, so let's step into the public sector a little bit, and from the port standpoint, we could talk a lot about other things, but specifically to downtown right here, the lineage properties we had, and I'm going to sort of share the logic behind that. We had the opportunity, because of our size and our abilities, to acquire 160,000 square feet of vacant warehouse space in between Pybus and the downtown. And we just decided as a commission, this has to happen. We've got to control it. And then our second objective, our second part of that mission was, and then immediately turn around and get it into private sector. And we're in the process of doing that. We've got one under contract now. We're looking at another one. And I think the whole point was to get the energy, the business acumen of a lot of private sector folks to step up, take this on, show us what you can do, and let's bring something that doesn't exist here and make it happen. Now we have this sport project that if we can launch this, if they as a team can put this together, it will be a regional asset. You'll be having people drive down from Okanagan to come to this place. It's just got a plethora of entertainment and just really fun stuff. And so it's called Sport, and it's really cool. That's the north node. The south node is more industrial. We're working on that. And then the middle node will be where I think Badger Mountain Brewery is there. We will probably end up dressing that up and doing some of the work ourselves there just to get it moving. But again, we're trying to fill that gap in between the waterfront and downtown with an engaging, welcoming place where you can stop in and maybe it's Pybus 2.0, I don't know, but it's something that's entertaining and will bring people to the region. Beyond that, we have some really exciting stuff going on, and we're seeing a lot of levels of interest that we have never seen before. I just have to say that. It's pretty exciting. Yeah,
that area, and if you've not lived here your whole life and aren't quite as old as maybe some other folks are, you just come here and appreciate it for the fact that it's here already. I remember I went to junior high school in the late 1980s. They used to march us across the old bridge, the early bridge, and we go down in that area where the loop trail is officially now to do part of our runs. None of that was there, of course. I mean, so you talk about an area that's just absolutely vastly changed over the course of really just the last few decades, with the loop trail's completion, with Pybus going in, and now we're talking about even more projects down there and what was used to be, again, industrial and warehouse space. Exactly. Yeah. So it's really neat to see the vision of yourself and others come together in this community to recreate some of these spaces, to turn dust into gold, I guess, if you will, in some ways, and repurpose these spaces. It's also very green, I would imagine, too, in some ways, rather than having to tear these buildings down. And
I'm glad you brought that up. It's what's really cool is when you build a 40-unit apartment complex, you're buying a lot of modulars. You're buying shipments that are drop ship. When you go in and take a building and renovate it, it's stick by stick by stick. You're doing all of that locally. It all goes back into the local economy. You're hiring local people. You're buying from the lumber store, the hardware store, and that's what you do. You have to do it that way. That's just the way it's done. So it's a much more effective way to put that money back into the community. And even for investors that are doing this, which is pretty cool, we talk about kicking the tires. You can send your money to New York, or you can invest in a local building with somebody and you can go kick the tires. You can go in and see what your money is doing. And we all know what that trickle down effect is, how many times you roll that wage over or that dollar invested. It's about 3 times. And so, if you get a bunch of people doing that, which is what we've seen over the last couple of years, and it's working. It's really working.
Awesome stuff. Part of a great community that we all share, with Shiloh Burgess, Executive Director of the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce, with us today, along with Rory Turner. Rory's an expert in business development, revitalization, and also part of the Chelan Douglas Regional Port Authority, one of their port commissioners. Rory, Shiloh, I appreciate the time very much in studio today. Anything else to offer or add?
No, just thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, very good. Well, we'll look forward to future conversations with the Chamber as part of our community development segment of the the Community Connections podcast series that we are doing with the Chamber, partnering up with them. Again, all these available online on demand at our website, KOHO101.com. There's links on the Chamber's website as well. And also, these are downloadable any place that you like to download podcasts. You'll find them on demand there as well. And look forward to another installment in the near future.